Scott was right. They really do just put quantum in front of anything, don't they? Hey everybody, welcome to Mainely Movies. Today I'm going to be talking about the 31st movie in the MCU, Marvel's 2023 superhero sequel, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. If you're new here, please consider subscribing for a variety of movie-related content like reviews, rank lists, and trailer reactions. All my reviews include a breakdown of the pros and cons, my rating, and some tailored film recommendations, so be sure to watch through to the end of this video for all of that extra content. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania stars Paul Rudd, Evangeline Lilly, and Jonathan Majors, and was directed by Peyton. It tells the story of Ant-Man, the Wasp, and the rest of the Ant family after they get unexpectedly transported to the quantum realm and must find their way home. The Ant-Man franchise has always found itself in a bit of a strange position. Focusing on a lesser-known character and presenting in a mostly comedic and lighthearted way, it's been an MCU outlier since the start. But these Ant-Man films have also been in a strange position when it comes to the actual physical order of the MCU movies. The first film was a bright, comedic follow-up to the dour Avengers Age of Ultron. Ant-Man and the Wasp was a comedic 180 from the shock and emotion of Avengers Infinity War, only 2.5 months before it. And now Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is the lead-off film for Phase 5 of the MCU. Odd positioning aside, there's always been something refreshing about the Ant-Man movies. Their comedic, family-centric stories have been a nice break from the universe-ending cosmic threats at the heart of so many other MCU movies. So even though the Ant-Man franchise has never offered particularly substantial stories, I was looking forward to the third installment. Well, Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania is a very big departure from the other two Ant-Man movies. Honestly, it barely feels like it's part of the same sub-franchise. It just differs on so many levels. The major difference here is the tone, which is all over the place. It's still got some moments of humor, but the comedy is really dialed back here, and the humor that does remain feels different somehow. The breezy lightheartedness is instead replaced by bizarre goofiness. The size-altering humor isn't as fun, all the non-Ant family characters are missing. It's a strange shift. But like I said, the comedy is really dialed back, and the film takes a more serious, large-scale threat approach, which unfortunately comes across a bit dull and generic. There's a lot more action here, but there's also this distracting expansiveness to it all, which is ironic because they're tiny and in the quantum realm. It's not awful, but it just seems like too large of a scope, feeling more like a Star Wars movie than an Ant-Man one. Something that I wasn't expecting was how visually underwhelming this movie would be. Don't get me wrong, it's not like the visual effects of the other Ant-Man movies were ever great or anything, but there was something visually dynamic and interesting about seeing the size shifting within our world. Apart from the very brief bookends here, the entirety of Quantumania takes place within the quantum realm. Now, there is something kinda cool about exploring the quantum realm and its oddities, at first, but it's just too much and quickly loses that sense of wonder. I have nothing against the use of CG, and understand that the quantum realm would be impossible to represent in any other way, but non-stop green screen and CG backgrounds just get tedious for me, especially when many of the characters or threats are CG as well. This is doubly the case when you've got some iffy CG characters like the utterly absurd MODOK. I know he wasn't just made for the movie, but I don't think he could have looked any more distracting or ridiculous here. In fact, everything about MODOK is ridiculous. His design, his role in the story, his character arc, he just makes every scene he's in worse. Luckily, the main villain here is actually really solid. Kang is easily the best Ant-Man villain we've had so far, though I have to say that it feels like he has no business being the villain in an Ant-Man movie. He's got this much more expansive, universe-threatening vibe to him, so it just feels a little weird. I get that this serves as setup to a franchise and multi-movie spanning villain arc, but this would be like if they had introduced Thanos to the MCU as an Ant-Man movie villain. Despite his odd usage here, Kang is certainly formidable. We get a taste of this character, sort of, in Loki, and Jonathan Majors really delivers here, bringing an unsettling level of intense, quiet menace with his measured speech and calm ruthlessness. This movie could have been really rough, but the presence of Kang manages to keep it afloat. Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania isn't entirely awful, but it's certainly a letdown. The story does have some interesting elements. There's a little bit of fun to be had, a few jokes land, we get a bit more Scott and Cassie family time than in previous films. It's certainly exposition heavy when it comes to Janet's experiences in the quantum realm, but it's not horrible on that front either, because she's reasonably relaying that information to characters in the story, rather than just for our benefit as the audience. We've also got our first really good Ant-Man villain in Kang, but this film still ends up being an underwhelming mishmash of generic comic book movie ideas that goes more Star Wars than Ant-Man. There's a lot of plot, and it presents high stakes, but somehow ends up feeling even more insubstantial than the other intentionally breezy Ant-Man movies, clearly being used as a phase setup film and not much else. Alright, let's talk about the pros and cons. Pro number 1 is Kang. It feels weird to be putting the villain on the pro side of an Ant-Man movie, but we've finally got a good one. Admittedly, Ant-Man is just being used to set up our latest phase-spanning big baddie, but beggars can't be choosers, and we're gonna count him. Kang is a formidable foe here, and ends up being this film's primary saving grace. Jonathan Majors reprises the role from Loki, in a way at least, and does an excellent job. He's quiet, calm, and measured, but menacing in that reserved nature. On the con side, the biggest issue is the tone. I know a lot of people would have put this on the con side since the start of the franchise, but I've always found the lighter, comedic tone of the Ant-Man movies to be a nice break from the humor forced into serious moments template of the rest of the MCU. Well, Quantumania has joined those generic ranks, focusing on a serious multiverse-threatening issue and rebellion while throwing in a handful of gags and silly characters who serve no other purpose in the story. Speaking of which, con number 2 is definitely MODOK. You know, I don't think there's been a Marvel character I've disliked more in years. I realize he's from the comics and not just a made-for-the-movie creation, but I don't understand why anybody would think, hey, you know what this story needs? MODOK. And even if that idea made it into the script somehow, I don't understand how anybody would look at the finished product, the design, the visual effects, the storyline, and still think that he was a good addition to the film. Completely baffling to me. Before I give you my rating recommendations, I want to remind you that if you're interested in buying Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, or any of the other films I mentioned today, I do have affiliate links for all of them in the description below. I get a small commission from anything you buy using one of my links, so I'd really appreciate it if you use them if you're in the market for any of these movies. I'm gonna give Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania 3 out of 5 paws, though at least after this first watch, it's a pretty low 3. The film features the best Ant-Man villain yet, but the Star Wars-inspired world-building and serious rebellion story are a far cry from the lighthearted comedic fun of the other 2 Ant-Man movies. I would recommend Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania to people who like the cosmic MCU movies. If unique worlds and CG environments are what you enjoy from a comic book film, then this movie will probably have something to offer you, especially if you're also a Star Wars fan. But if you're someone who really liked the other 2 Ant-Man movies and are looking for a tonally similar continuation, you're bound to be at least a little disappointed here. If you liked Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania, I would recommend Star Wars: The Rise of Skywalker. While any Star Wars film from any of the trilogies would probably do, the last chance ragtag rebellion remnants aspect of this one is very similar to what we see in Quantumania. In fact, there are quite a few moments in the latest Ant-Man that feel straight up lifted from this film. If you like the idea of a character being transported to a space-like realm, then you might want to watch John Carter. Rather than a superhero, it focuses on a Civil War soldier who suddenly finds himself at the center of a planetary war on Mars, in another sort of fish-out-of-water Star Wars story. And if you enjoy the look and design of the quantum realm, you might want to check out Strange World. Although it's another recent, generic Disney offering, it does contain some similar visual elements, and another decent family-centric focus. Alright, a couple questions for you guys. Number 1, have you seen Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania? If so, what'd you think of it? And number 2, do you think Ant-Man was a good choice to kick off Phase 5 of the MCU? If not, which character would have been better? Be sure to leave your answers in the comments below so we can get a discussion going. Alright, so if you got some enjoyment, insight, or information out of this review, I'd appreciate if you'd hit that like button. And if you haven't done so already, please hit subscribe while you're at it to see more videos like this. Till next time, this has been Alyssa with Mainely Movies, the way life should be.